Okay, morning everybody. So as you know, with OHBM, there was the COBIDAS for MRI, and then the last 2 years we've been working on this MEG. So hopefully most of you have seen the document on the whether on the site archive or on the website. So you can find it there. The website is going to be live. It's the same as the COBIDAS MRI. We keep the website on. Anybody who's got comments, you're welcome to email Enya or myself, or just leave comments on the COBIDAS website, and we keep integrating everything. Just before I continue, I wanted to thank Enya, who asked me to co-chair the committee 2 years ago, and of course the whole team. So it's, it's a big effort to do all of this document, and also it's an honor to stand instead of Pedro, who couldn't come today. And of course, can we go back? Yeah. And also to thank the 100+ people who commented on the document. So overall, if we integrate everything that we ask the community and also the comments of the website, we had more than 300 comments, 350 comments to integrate. So I hope many of you commented. If you haven't, you can still comment. This is live document, and we really want to have input from everybody to make sure that we reflect how the OHBM community deals with MEG. So what's happening is change. As you know, there's big changes the last maybe 10 years in how we do science, mostly due to issues with reproducibility and also in parallel movements with open science, right? So we've got these things about transparency for our data acquisition analysis parameters. So that's a big part of the document. And the document really focused on these issues and how we can reproduce things. So our guidelines have been we always had in mind, okay, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to report this? And it's because we want to think along data transparency. Then we've got everything on sharing code, and then of course you've got everything related to open review and scientific manuscripts, which is a bit different from what we talk about in COBIDAS. Just in case you didn't know or you don't have memory of this, the statement about data integrity started in June 2014 from the OHBM Council. And I'm going to just read part of that statement, which says it is an appropriate time, in 2014, for its membership to embrace a collective effort toward enhancing solid experimental rigor, study management, provenance practices, and openness, along with regards to data sharing. And so, as you know, OHBM has been working and helping a lot of people to work towards this, and that's what we've done. So we started with COBIDAS MRI following that statement. And as you probably know, 2 years later, the COBIDAS MRI from Tom Nichols, who was chairing, came out, and it was a commentary in Nature Neuroscience. So then we decided to do the COBIDAS MEEG in Vancouver 2 years ago. Last year there was already a version 1 of the preprint where Anya reported at Singapore, and we just finalized last month the version 2. So the version 2 is probably what we're going to try to summarize in another document, but you're very welcome to keep commenting on it. Right? And then I think it would be very interesting to keep commenting, especially after today's sessions, because of course we don't have that many clinical people who actually commented on that document. So the goal, of course, of the COBIDAS document was to raise standards practice, mostly about reporting, so that's the transparency aspect of what the council statement is about. And we thought about both authors and editors or reviewers as well. So it should be helping you. We're going to keep working on making the documents and maybe tables so that authors is easier to use, but also for journal as a reviewer or also as an editor. And the focus of the document is replicability. So basically, what are the needs that needs to be reported for others to redo the job? And of course, at the same time, we were listing everything that, as people who've been working on the field, thought it would be a good practice. Can you raise your hand if you've seen the document, COBIDAS? Everybody had a good look at it, or just a tiny look at it? Not that many people. One. Thank you. Nobody else. Okay, so as I said, you can check up the website. It's probably easier to browse than the PDF. So the whole document is similar to what the document for MRI was. And so we split in different topics. So it's quite a long document, obviously, because we have to think about everything that we can do in MEG. So we split in different sections, from reporting your design, data, pre-processing, physics, results, and so on. And what I highlighted there is the appendix, tables and parameters to be reported. Because although you have a big document to read, and that's what really we try to do, is to have these kind of tables, and that's what you want to use when you write your paper. Because you don't need to read, you can read it, but the table should be enough to say, okay, do I have all of this information? And this is the information that we thought is the most useful when you report, so that you have full transparency on how you acquire your data, you process your data, and so on. And so that was really the emphasis of the document. And so please do have a look and comment. And so I'm just going to go through a little bit of these headings, but more like not one by one, more grouped. So the three groups are data in, so basically the design, the data acquisition. So typically we have demographics, and in this case this is parity with COBIDAS MRI. So if you look at the COBIDAS MRI, you will see we pretty much have the same things. Obviously we encourage sharing of stimuli and scripts. And then we also defined a lot of a lexicon, and the lexicon follow BIDS. So I don't know if you're much familiar with BIDS. So BIDS is the brain imaging data structure. This is a structure that is recommended to share your data. And within the brain imaging data structure, we also had to think about dictionaries and define different terms. So we make sure to homogenize the lexicon. So we have things about sessions, runs, events. Main differences is the difference between a sensor on your head and the channel, your amplifier, fiducials and landmarks. One is anatomical, the other one is something that you just made up. Sensor space, source space. The idea of defining lexicon is that if we define lexicon between different societies, between different organizations, such as OHBM, BIDS, IFCN, then it means we all talk the same language. Because of course we can use terms like run and session, and we can just use them indifferently. But the thing is that this creates confusions. So that's the reason why we start working on things like lexicon. There's also a lot of emphasis on hardware. This is something often that we don't report a lot. However, it can make big differences in your results. And so the second big part of the document focuses on data pre-processing and statistics, probably way more than you would like to. With things such as working on workflows, software documentation, algorithmic parameters. This is also what was reported in the COBIDAS MRI. We tend simply to say, I filtered the data, or I done this and done that, but we don't report things such as the slope of your filter, or we don't report. There's so many things, and I understand this is something very difficult to do, but if you want to be transparent and we want to be able to reproduce each of our data analysis, we have to go and do all of this. We also make some differences between regions of interest, whether it's in space or on the scalp, versus full space analysis. We talked a little bit about statistical power. And then again, same thing as defining lexicon about session, runs, fiducials, anatomic. We've got conventions. And so naming conventions about how we name things. So we decided to adopt IFCN convention. Which seems to make sense because then we've got transparency and then across all the disciplines. So we're not going to say you're going to talk about P something or N something. No N1, but more N170, right? Where you have actual timing, and same for we defined all the frequency bands, and the frequency bands sometimes in the literature you've got a big overlap between what somebody considers to be, I don't know, gamma, in one case and another, whereas there we think, along with IFCN, that it's important to have clear rules on what we name so that we know what we're talking about. And then we've got reporting quantitative effect. Again, because this allows to have a more reproducible view on brain dynamics rather than focusing on A is different from B. We have a big section on source modeling. So if you do source modeling, we have explicit mentions of forward and inverse model, BEM, FEM, the different algorithms that you want to use, and again, same thing as with preprocessing, a big emphasis on parameters. Because you can tweak so many things when you do source modeling that changing a parameter makes it that you can't reproduce somebody else's analysis. And so really the focus on all of these tiny details that we put in the document and in the table, that's why I'm focusing on, you can use tables, you don't need to read the whole doc, is about reproducibility. And again, some reporting about the model. Something about connectivity that we define loosely as any method that aims to detect functional coupling between two or more channels or sources. It's important to distinguish between channel and sources. So there's a recent paper in IEEE about this, but this is also along some of the guidelines of IFCN. So the committee decided to recognize both sensor and source level connectivity, so we think that's fine, you can do both. But also we emphasize the fact that sensor level results are not measures of neural connectivity. Sometimes there is some confusion. We recognize that it can be very useful for things such as biomarkers. However, this is not neural connectivity. So the last bit, of course, of the COBIDAS document is what data out. That's really something that I work a lot on, since I'm also the leader of BIDS for EEG, intracranial, and normal EEG. So the adoption from COBIDAS is to adopt BIDS. So if you don't know about brain imaging data structure, you can just Google BIDS. It will take you to the website. There's GitHub. There's all sorts of things. But the overall document is a README doc document. And so that details on how you can share your data and the way you need to name your files. So this is now something that we recommend for both EEG, MEG. It's not just MRI. So there's pretty much all sorts of description on how to share your data. We also emphasize in the COBIDAS to share derivatives and to share your scripts. Again, all of this, of course, is to encourage transparency. This will facilitate meta-analysis between us. And also, an important aspect that people don't realize is how to improve training, right? So once you get into the lab and you've got an experiment that you want to do, if we are able to take somebody else's data which looks similar to what we want to do, is very useful for training. And so with that, I'm going to conclude simply by putting a quote from Mother Teresa, which I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples. And I hope that with COBIDAS, that's what we've done. You know, we're not saying that's going to revolutionize everything, but we're hoping that we cast some stones, and that's up to you guys to take it on board, and hopefully we will progress toward more reproducibility and transparency in MEG. To finish, just again want to reiterate, this is really a collective and continuing effort, right? There is a committee, but we have more than 100 people participate to that document, with more than 300 comments. So you're very, very, very welcome to keep contributing to make it a collective thing, and not just, you know, this is a committee from OHBM. It really also make the effort to integrate with IFCN, ILA, BIDS. So we want to be not just about OHBM, but also try to make, and that's why we have this symposium this morning, to work with other societies. All of this, again, to improve transparency for reviewers and researchers alike. Thank you.